Hi guys, Squintina here, and I'm going to cover my Astrologian controller setup. I'm going to apologize right now for how long this video is. If you would like to skip to the final section, there is a shortcut in the description. If you are going to listen to the details, please make sure you are familiar with the terms queuing and clipping as they are referenced in the video. Otherwise, there is a link in the description to another video explaining that. Anyway, let's get started. Alright, so first we're going to start with our GCDs. This is because we want our GCDs, ideally, to be on the action buttons, and not the D-pad. So, attack, right? Healing's all about that attacking. Malefic, combust, and gravity goes on the other side. The main reason has to do with gravity isn't used quite as much in raids. Certainly it's used a lot in dungeons, but not as much in raids unless you have ads. So it doesn't need to be on the right side, which is typically where you have things that are used more often. However, you might notice that you don't really get an instant attack other than combust, which has no initial damage like White Mage's arrow. So while we are going to talk about our GCD first, for the sake of focusing on attacking, I'm also going to bring down light speed. And so the idea is that if you do need to dodge, you can hit up light speed, and now you can use your Malefic as your dodging button. Next, we've got our healing GCDs. Single target heals, and of course, AoEs. So for AoEs, we're actually going to put them behind. Press left and right together, which is called the Expanded. And the reason behind that is that since you don't have to target, you can afford that extra press. And since they're GCDs, you don't really need to see a cooldown, so they can totally be in the back. And because they are still on the action buttons, they're still going to be fast if you do need to do them very quickly. So, Helios and Expected Helios. So this is my, I need 330 potency heal right now, and this is the, I want slightly less heal, but I want my extra stuff on top, like my regen or my shield. So this is the strong heal, this is the technically weaker, but potentially stronger depending on whether you're using it properly heal. For your single targets, I did have a little rule that right here would be our single target region, and right here would be our AoE region. Well, with Astrologian that's a bit more difficult because, well, our single target region in Diurnal is Expected Benefic, but in Nocturnal it's actually Celestial Intersection, but that's not a GCD, so it's not gonna go here. We're gonna put Expected Benefic here. Likewise, in Diurnal, we get 2 AoE regions, which are Expected Helios, but also Celestial Opposition. In Nocturnal, both of those don't do regions at all. So, the whole Nocturnal and Diurnal aspect is making it a little bit more difficult to keep this idea of I'm going to have certain things shared, but we are going to go with the Diurnal effect, and since we already have Expected Helios placed, Celestial Opposition will be taking that spot. And I know I said this was going to be a GCD section, but I also need to cover my rules, so there will be some little mix and matching where appropriate. But of course, let's not forget our actual GCD single targets. Benefic and Benefic II, they are GCDs, so they belong on the action buttons, and that's where they will be. This is very similar to how I did for the other healers. We've got a few more. Repose is still not super useful, so even though it's a GCD, it will not go on the action button. It will go right here on the Expanded. Squintina is already infinitely more useful, but it's still, something you use every once in a while. Same with Ascend, ideally. And so, while it will go on the action buttons, it's going to go on the double on the left side. And because we have a send here, and sometimes you're going to want to swift cast that, we're going to also put swift cast there as well, which is what we did for the other healers. And so really the remaining things we have to do first, before we really get into, okay, how do we change Astrologian, is let's make sure we put the things that are the same between all the healers, such as Lemon Break. It's going to go over here no matter what. Surecast, Lucid Dreaming. These are all predetermined because I set them that way in the other healers. You don't want to have different places for your role actions or your general actions, because that will lead to mess ups if you're switching from one to the other. You're going to be thinking, oh, I'm going to hit Surecast, and then it turns out you didn't. Oopsies, you're dead. So that's why it's important for the role actions to be in the same spot and why we're doing them right now. But that means now we have things that are more Astrologian focused. We do still have AoE GCD heals, one of which is targeting, and then our single target. We've got our card actions and our sects. You might be thinking I should do the cards first to try to keep them together, but actually the cards are going to be heavily single weaved. There are times when you will be trying to use them as fast as possible, such as the opener, or if you already have your divination ready, you know you're going to be using something for a minor arcana, so you can absolutely do a draw double weave directly into a minor arcana. But for the rest of the fight, most of the time you're going to be single weaving, ideally from a shortened cast time. But because of that, you don't really need the cards to be together, so we're going to leave the cards for last. So, we need our ground targeting. Earthly Star goes here. We also needed an AoE shield, which we've designated as over here. And we need our big buff. And for Astrologian, the big buff is neutral set. We did have a rule that we wanted our instant AoE heals to be here, here, or here. So you might be thinking, Horoscope's gonna go here. But not quite. And this is because, once again, we want to make it very smooth for people to switch between the healers. And if you look at Scholar, Indom is a 400 potency. Assize is also 400 potency. Horoscope is only a 400 potency if you prepared it in advance by using it, putting in a Helios, and then you have it ready. Which means it's not going to be as quick as using an Indom or a size from an oh I messed up perspective, or other people messed up perspective. It's something you have to prepare at least 2 GCDs in advance. While it can reach a 400 potency, which would be equivalent, the speed is not there. So we're actually going to put it in the other slot over here. Celestial Opposition itself cannot reach that because its potency is 200 and then its effect, and while the effects are certainly very good, it is still not a, oh, I'm going to get this pretty strong instant heal right now. But you know what does? Earthly Star, but I've already placed it into my targeting spot. What I'm actually going to recommend is putting it in 2 places. You'll be thinking, but what's the point? In that case, can't I just use it from here? You can. But the reason I'm going to recommend it is because this is one of the few actions where I like to use a macro. And this makes it feel very fast. You know, I can use this, it will instantly put it where I am. Here's my Earthly Star, it's ready to be popped. If I really need that super fast heal, I'm gonna put it down, I'm gonna pop it right away. But if I want to wait, I can wait. If I want to manually target it rather than pop it where I am, which is what this macro does, then I can. If you want to see the macro, let me show you one more time. Put it on my target or put it on me. It makes it a very, very fast way of targeting it if you need to. But you still have the option to target it normally, manually, here. That being said, you do need to pop it. Once again, you could either use a macro, but now you don't have, skill queuing, or you can use the one up top, which does have queuing. Overall, this is closer to an Indom in the size than an Horoscope would be, and so that's why I believe it belongs here, but it also belongs here. Sexual dignity and intersection. So this is what I consider the tank buster one, which, admittedly, stances matter. If you are in diurnal, which means this is now your region, this becomes a little shield that you can pop on your tank when the tank buster comes. If you are nocturnal, it's kind of the other way around. Synastry goes over here. It can be very strong, but the fact that it's using casted heals means it's not a preferred OGCD heal, if you can call it that. And so, being on the D-pad is very appropriate for it. For the actual stances, we don't need to see them all the time, so they're going to go on the Expanded. So, our card actions. Well, Sleeve draws a big cooldown. I'm going to put it right here on the D-pad because you're not going to use it super often, so the D-pad is very appropriate for it. And because we want to weave, I actually do like weaving from the primary to the Expanded. It's a very easy motion. And so, draw and redraw are going to go up top, because they're the ones that are used fairly often. Divination has a 120-second cooldown, so it's not used super often, but you do want to make sure you can see it, and it's also a party buff, similar to Change Stratagem, so it belongs right here. And Stormblood on draw had its use. Now this expansion, I honestly don't see a use for it, no matter which level range you're in. If you have a card and it's on an ideal card and you can't redraw it, you might as well just use it. Half of a buff is still better than no buff, so I literally do not see a need for it. But in case somebody else does, it goes on the Expanded. So that leaves 2 spots on our primary and our double for play and minor arcana. Who gets what? You might be thinking play is used more often, so it should go on the action button. However, play, you do want to target. And to target, you're going to use your D-pad. But unless you like to have to constantly change your hard target, you're going to want to get used to soft targeting. It's very strong to use soft targeting in Astrology. So play is going to go on the D-pad, because that's going to make it very fast. If you're not used to soft targeting, it's going to feel a bit weird. It will. But once you get used to it, it's going to be a much better way of using your card than putting it on the action button. So give it a try. But if you don't like it, just switch them. As an Astrologian, you have to use cards, and in this particular expansion, you have to use them fairly often, and you have to almost entirely single target, which can get a little annoying. So definitely learn how to do soft targeting and how to do single weaves using shortened cast times. But if you haven't gotten to that point yet, if you're still a new Astrologian, or if you're just a person who maybe isn't very good at weaving or, pre-targeting, a macro might be useful. And so, this section is only for people who would like that extra help. If you do not want that extra help, if you want to just learn how to do very good targeting on your own and get to that point, then I would recommend just copy this over there. But if you want that extra help, I've got you. You'll notice here I have an entire line of macros. All of these are for Astrologian. And all they do is say, use the action play on target 2, target 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then 1 and 3 and 4 again. And these icons have what they will ideally be. So in dungeons, you get 1 tank, 1 healer, 2 DPS. I'm using the typical default sorting, and so my DPS would be in 3 and 4. And so this is my DPS card section. The way I see it, if you're going to use a card on yourself, well, all you have to do is just press play. You don't really need a macro for that. And if it's a tank, it's 1 away. I mean, you can do it. So here's your... Okay, I want to give buffs to my DPS during dungeons. And then during 8-man raids that aren't alliance raids, we got our tanks. We're going to put the DPS in the same spot, so 1 and 2, and 3, 4. In case you want to buff your co-healer, maybe they're doing some really good damage. You don't need one for yourself, but what you do need is a party sort. The reason being, sometimes you get in progress duties, sometimes people leave and come back, and your party list might get messed up. And these macros, they rely on numbers. So if your party list gets messed up, here's a nice little macro to fix it, which is just, please sort my party. Of course, if you're in an alliance raid where there's 1 tank and 5 DPS, this is gonna get a little messed up. And you're just gonna have to adjust or accept that some of your cards will be wrong. This is supposed to be a helpful tool while you're trying to learn how to play the rest of Astrologian. I would highly recommend, once you get really comfortable with divination and how it works, you know, your seals, which, do remember, you can actually see everything on the card, you don't need to memorize. Assuming you are not colorblind. So, you can see the seal over here, each are different. And if the border, if you're not colorblind, will tell you whether it's intended for a ranged, which includes healers, or a melee, which includes tanks. So, purple means ranged, so this would go to a ranged DPS, whether it's physical range or magical range, or a healer. Once it goes to blue, it means this is for melee, and you can see the icon, so you don't actually need to memorize which cards are which. You just need to get your seals lined up and adjust your color according to your party list. Also, if you are colorblind, do note it is a bit different. Right? If it's the purple one, which is the ranged one, on the side, you'll see something that kind of looks like a circle right here. On the sides, it's a circle. Whereas if it's the melee tank one, it looks like a plus. So even if you are colorblind, you can still tell just by looking at the picture. You do not have to memorize. But once you get to that point where you're comfortable, I would really highly recommend not using the macros unless you're really having trouble. So they are here, they're available to you. Some people have, learning issues, they're a little bit slower. It's perfectly fine to use macros if they make you more efficient than you would normally be. But if you are able to get past that, it's better to try to wean yourself off. So I'm making them available to you. Judge based on your own progress whether you want to use them. Just remember that if you are using macros, you cannot queue that in advance. So if you're going to use it after that malefic, as that malefic is casting, you're going to have to prepare which one you want to target and be spamming it until it finally goes off, and then go back to your next thing. It's going to lead to a lot of GCD clipping, and that's why it's there if you need it. But if you can wean yourself off of it, that's fantastic. Alright, so now that we've finished the Astrologian specific macros, let's go over the healer macros. If you've seen the other 2 healer videos, you've already seen them. Which is that, in my system configuration, button configuration, you can see that my controller clicks, analog clicks are macros. 99, which is on my, over here, my right side, is sprint. 98 is a targeting macro. So if I, do this before the fight starts, it will just target the boss instead of my focus target. If it's after the fight starts, it would still do that. Well, specifically, it targets whatever target I pick. It says that as a focus target. And then it will go to that target's target, which, if you used it on the boss, would be tank. But if you use it on tank, now it will go most likely to the boss. So it can be a very flexible macro depending on how you want to use it. But I prefer to use this to focus target the boss so that I can see its attacks, even if I have to actually cast a single target heal, which means that I am targeting somebody else. And that way I can see its attacks better than on the enemy list, because that, even though we still show it, you can see cast bars on the enemy list. It's much smaller text than if you have it on the focus bar. And so for those occasional attacks where they actually have similar names but they change at the end, sometimes the enemy list is, well, not enough and you can't actually tell. But the focus one is bigger. It's still not as big as the actual primary one. I wish they would fix that, but it's much bigger, and it's unlikely that it won't be enough for you to actually be able to realize which version of the attack is coming up for when that happens. Alright, let's do the quick summary. On the primary bar, in the right side, we have Malefic, Combust 3, Expected Benefic, Lightspeed. We have Play, Essential Dignity, Celestial Intersection, and an Earthly Star macro. We have Gravity, Benefic, Celestial Opposition, and Benefic II on the left side, as well as Horoscope, Sleeve Draw, Synastry, and Rescue. On the double, on the right, we have Draw, Divination, Lucid Dreaming, Redraw, Collective Unconscious, Surecast, Neutral Sect, and Earthly Star, not with macro. On the left side, still in the double, we've got Swiftcast, Ascent, Minor Arcana, Asuna, Limit Break, and 3 slots for potions or other things. In the expanded, we've got Expected Helios, Repose, Diurnal Sect, Undraw, and Nocturnal Set. You can also choose to do that on the other side. And if you are using the macro-assisted version, on your expanded, in the right side, you have your target DPS 1 and DPS 2, which are party members 3 and 4, using normal setup. And on the left side, you have the 8-man version, which has your DPS 1, 2, 3, 4, Tank 1, Tank 2, Co-Healer, and instead of having yourself a party sorted. Alright, that's it for this guide. I will see y'all later. Please tell me if you had any issues or questions, and I look forward to making that controller targeting video that I refer to at least once in this video. Bye bye!